A man in red tight suit fighting against bad guys with sharp metallic claws coming out of his knuckles is what I expect when I think of a Wolverine movie. Not some chubby guy in a red tight suit who would look more at home hosting a cooking show than kicking ass. Well, Deadpool's one of my favorite Marvel characters, and Ryan Reynolds' portrayal of him in the previous movies was spot on. But this time they messed up. The reason, in my opinion, why this movie didn't work is because of two things. One is that they tried to make it funny and failed miserably. And second, the poor script that just didn't do it for me. It made me feel like someone had taken all the best parts from the comics, thrown them into a blender, added a bunch of random crap, then pressed puree. I mean, we got Logan, Wade, Russell, Yukio, Domino, Cable, even X-23 and the kid from Stranger Things. So many beloved characters crammed into one movie that it felt like a cheap cash grab. Like they just threw in every popular character without giving any of them proper development. I was hoping this would be a fun, action-packed ride, but instead I spent most of the movie feeling frustrated and annoyed. I can take some crude humor and some fan service, but this was too much of both. It was like a parody of a parody. If you want a good laugh, go watch the trailer and then imagine how awesome the movie could have been if they actually put in some effort. Imagine Ryan Reynolds, Hugh Hefner, William Lee, Zazie Beetz, and Josh Brolin. That would have been a movie worth watching. Instead, we got this abomination. That being said, there are still some good things about the movie. First off, the fight scenes. Even though they weren't given much screen time, the few times Logan and Wade fought together was pretty awesome. The chemistry between Reynolds and Jackman was great, and their banter was on point. The fight choreography was solid too, with plenty of fast-paced action and brutal close-ups. I also liked how they showed Wolverine's adamantium bones shattering and reforming. That was a nice touch. Another good thing was seeing Professor X and Magneto in their younger years. It was cool to see them team up again, even if it was only for a few minutes. Plus, Patrick Stewart and Ian McKellen reprising their roles was a nice surprise. And let's not forget about the post-credit scene. I won't spoil it for you, but it was a nice little Easter egg for fans. But those were the only good things about the movie. Everything else just made me want to pull my hair out. Let's start with the humor. I get that they were going for a buddy cop type of vibe, but most of the jokes just fell flat. They were either too crude or too random. Remember that hilarious scene in Deadpool 2 when Wade was recruiting new members for his X-Force and he kept getting interrupted by Cable? Yeah, that kind of humor. But this movie is supposed to be a serious, gritty, R-rated action flick. I don't know why they thought crude humor would work in this tone. I guess they thought it would make the movie funnier, but it just made it feel cheap and immature. And what was up with the pointless fan service? I'm talking about those random cameos and references that didn't serve any purpose to the plot. Like, why did they have to include that one scene where Wade and Logan fight each other in a bar and then they both take a sip from the same glass? It made no sense, and it was just thrown in there to make us say, oh wow, they're so close. We totally shipped them. Ugh. There was also the unnecessary and poorly executed kiss between two male characters. I understand trying to be inclusive, but it felt forced and awkward. It was clear they were trying to appeal to the LGBTQ community, but it just didn't work. Why couldn't the characters be just friends instead of having to label it as something more? This made me roll my eyes so hard, I thought they'd get stuck in the back of my head. Speaking of relationships, what was up with Wade and Ellie's relationship? I get that they were going for a will they won't they dynamic, but it just felt weird. Ellie is a child for crying out loud, and Wade is basically her guardian. Sure, he's a bit of a pervert, but come on, that's part of his charm. But making him romantically involved with someone who he's in a position of power over just felt wrong. It made me uncomfortable, and it didn't add anything to the story. The movie also had a lot of plot holes that could have been easily fixed with a bit of planning. For example, why did Ellie have to be sent to Weapon X in the first place? I mean, she's a mutant, right? So why not just send her to one of those fancy mutant schools where they teach kids how to control their powers? No, we had to send her to a secret government facility where they experiment on mutants and turn them into weapons. Makes sense. Or how come no one thought to check if Logan was, dead? I mean, he was missing for years. So wouldn't it be a good idea to make sure he's actually alive before involving him in your super secret plan? Nope. Let's just assume he's dead and move on. These plot holes were so glaring that it made me wonder if the writers had even watched the previous movies. And then there was the villain. Don't get me wrong, I love Emma Frost. but casting Bella Porte as her was a big mistake. I don't know if it was her acting or the writing, but her character lacked any depth or charisma. She was supposed to be this powerful telepath who could manipulate people's minds, but she just came off as a whiny, annoying little girl. The movie also tried to make her look hot by giving her lots of sex scenes, but that didn't work either. It just made her look desperate and pathetic. And finally, there was the ending. What was up with that? I mean, I get that they wanted to set up the next movie, but they could have done it in a way that didn't feel like a cheap cliffhanger. The ending left too many questions unanswered, and it made me feel like I had wasted 2 hours of my life. Look, I'm not gonna lie, there were some parts of the movie that made me laugh, mostly because of how bad they were. Like, seriously, some of the fight scenes were so hilariously bad that I couldn't help but laugh. And of course, there were some cool moments here and there, like I mentioned earlier. But overall, I would say that this movie is not worth your time or money. I'm sorry, but it was just too long, too slow, and too stupid. I can't recommend it unless you're a huge fan of the characters and you don't care about a good story or decent acting. So I give this movie a 2 out of 10. Yeah, I made that number up. It was that bad. Now, please tell me in the comments if you agree with my review. And if you want to support my work, consider becoming a member. I appreciate every like, comment, and share. It really helps me out. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you in the next one.